Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, I am talking to Louisa today. She is the founder of Matcha Union. This episode is not sponsored by Matcha Union, actually, but let's see. Maybe we provide a little gift or surprise at some point.
Yes, we can do a discount code for your podcast.
Exactly. So she is the founder of Matcha Union, a sustainable matcha brand. And the reason I wanted to share her story today is because I was really impressed when I learned that she built her brand pretty much organically with little to almost no digital marketing spend. So we are here today to break the myth that in order to have a successful brand these days, you need to spend thousands, if not millions, on digital marketing. And not only that, but you are a sole founder.
Yes.
You have self-funded your business.
Yes.
Up until a few months ago, you were kind of steering the ship pretty much by yourself, working with some agencies and some interns. And you're now at a very exciting chapter of any founder, which is when you can hire and start building a team.
Yes.
So welcome, Louisa.
Thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you and very excited to share how you built your business and to give some of these tips to anyone that is listening that is looking to start, their own brand and their own business. So who is Louisa?
So Louisa is a German girl born in Berlin, Germany. I went to international school there. Actually, I think that kind of set me up for moving abroad after I finished my studies. After my school, I went into business studies, and I was always good in mathematics, but I still had this kind of passion for art and also food, actually. I would have gone probably down the corporate road because that's what I was most passionate about. And I kind of saw myself joining one of the big corporates like LVMH or so on. I did an internship in UBS as well. But then life happened, took me to Shanghai, and at the time, it was like 2017, 18. I was not fluent in Chinese, and I didn't really have the option to join one of these big companies there. And I had this business plan ready because we had to do it in a branding class in university, which was like a French dining concept for open-faced sandwiches, which I also was very passionate about because I was eating it every day. Like at the time, the avocado toast just became popular and I loved it. And I showed it to a friend of mine there, and he actually owned a couple of restaurants there. And we was like, oh, this is very nice. Let's give it a try. And we did a pop-up there, which was actually very successful because we tested the product. We put it on the menu with a few other products. And actually, every single table in Shanghai at the time ordered this French open-faced sandwich called tartine. And that was kind of a proof of concept. And also the first time I was seeing our logo in real life. I was like kind of proud to see it on the menu. And then I literally took the matter into hands and was looking for a space. I actually took over an existing café and I launched tartine at the time. And I think that was also the start of Matcha Union, which is my current business, because I was never a coffee drinker and I was serving matcha every day. And it was part of my life since then, I guess.
You make it sound so easy, but I know that you actually ended up selling the business at a very young age.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that? I know so many people that start a business and then they just kind of walk away from it, but you had the very genius idea of actually selling the concept.
I think because I kind of jumped into it and suddenly I owned the place, and then all the stress started because I was like, I actually never worked in a cafe setting. I had no experience in it. I was literally in the cold water and had to get out and had to make this work. I think that gave me the confidence, first of all. And luckily for me, actually, the concept was working really well. And it was not sustainable for me to keep it because I wasn't going to stay in Shanghai. And actually, the landlord that was operating the complex, they were seeing how well it went, and they, in the end, took it over. And it was running for a few years later under the same concept, like brand name. It was great.
It sounds like you had quite a success story very early on, and it all kind of happened coincidentally.
Yeah.
But that's what set you on your entrepreneurship journey.
I think so, because otherwise, for sure, if I would have stayed in Europe or maybe in the US, I would have probably joined, I guess, one of the big companies that I thought I was going to join. But in the end, I think once you do something by yourself, you have all this decision making, the flexibility of all the decisions. Even though it's a challenge, it's also very exciting. And then it's kind of hard to go back to a former corporate ladder system where you literally start at the bottom and you have to really put in the time and the work to climb up the ladder.
And it builds your confidence. It kind of removes this barrier to entry that people have. And I think it's really hard when you're in the corporate ladder and you're earning a good salary and you have that stability and comfort to then take the leap, go into the uncertainty. And I almost feel like when you're a student in those early days, there isn't so much to lose.
You don't have fear. You don't have fear. You just do it. I mean, I was what, 19, 20 years old? Yeah, I was super young. I didn't think. I mean, now, later on, I was like, how can I just buy a place? I have no idea how to run it. I just managed. But it was even small decisions like hiring people. I was like, how do I hire a good person? And I literally went to all the surrounding cafes and I was looking at the baristas there. And the ones that gave me a good energy, I asked them, do you have a friend that is similar? Because I was good people, they connect. And that's how I actually found most of my team there.
That's a very interesting approach. I actually just remembered, I don't know if we ever spoke about this, but actually my first business was also a pop-up.
Really?
In Paris.
No way.
Macaroons. I had it for 1 year when I was 18. I completely forgot about it. This feels like a lifetime away. And it overlapped with my gap year and my first year in Paris. And it was a very similar experience. I just went for it.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I just remembered it. So let's talk about matcha.
Yes.
So tell me about your passion for green tea, because I know you're very, very passionate about it. And you mentioned that coffee doesn't make you feel well, and I can certainly relate to that. I still remember the first time I had my first coffee.
Yeah.
I actually fainted.
Really?
I had never had coffee, and I tried it for the first time. I was 19. And I used the black espresso ristretto pod, which is actually one of the strongest. I thought because it was the smallest, it was going to be the less. I mean, I knew nothing about Frankie. And on the way back home, I was having heart palpitations. I got home and I just collapsed on the bed. So yeah, can you tell me why? Why?
Well, I think it started for me, my journey with coffee, I think started after I moved to Milan. I studied there. And there, actually, I was drinking it every day, and it was great. I was 18, I guess. I didn't have any reactions to the coffee itself. But then when I moved to UK and I was trying coffee here, for some reason it was not the same like in Italy. And I really either my tummy would be upset, or I would just at the time I wouldn't say that I felt anxious, but I just I didn't even like the taste so much anymore. So I pretty quickly switched to matcha, probably inspired also a lot from my travels to the US, because I think at the time already the US, LA, especially in New York, they were adapting matcha as a beverage.
So is that where you discovered it?
I mean, I drank it in Japan first time. In my trip in Japan. But then this all the serving of matcha itself, as a beverage in a cafe setting, I think that was more cultivated in the US then, because in Japan it was more the traditional kind of tea ceremony style. So I really loved it.
Even in a ceremony style?
Well, no. The first time I tried it in Japan, I didn't enjoy it.
It's quite bitter.
I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was strong. It depends. I don't remember if that specific one was very bitter, but for me, it was just not the taste I was used to at the time. So it was more, I guess, inspired then from these coffee shops that I went to on my travels. And after I just here in UK, I ordered matcha all the time and from online, but nothing it was okay, but I was adding a lot of collagen in milk and so on. But I wasn't really convinced of anything that was on the market at the time either. And sometimes I would switch back to coffee, but then the older I got, the less, the more kind of bad effects from coffee I had.
We're more sensitive.
Negative, exactly. Yeah. Especially being more anxious, I think, as well, and not really being focused.
Yeah.
And with matcha, especially when I have my matcha right now, which is full of antioxidants and everything, you have the L-theanine and so on. I just noticed that when I have it in the morning, I'm so much more productive throughout the day.
Yeah.
And it really depends on which quality you're drinking as well, because that affects the load of antioxidants, the amount of L-theanine, which, for example, gives you this focus, but also keeps you relaxed. So there's so many elements in the tea that actually helps you to feel better, whether it's calming inflammation or even soothing your stomach lining. There's an array of benefits, which I love.
I mean, I can completely relate to that. And I know you did an experiment with a journalist, so I will ask you about that in a bit. But just to your point, when, for example, I now drink matcha, I've been converted for like a year and a half. I obviously drink your matcha as well. And I would never have a coffee before doing this podcast. And I know it would stress me out more than anything. Yeah. It's almost like it distracts you away from what you're trying to do. Whereas with matcha, I know it's going to give me that energy, but I'm still going to be kind of centered and focused on doing like one thing at a time.
That's why also historically, actually, like the Zen monks in Japan, they were using it to sustain hours of meditation. But at the same time, the samurai warriors were using matcha to go to battle. So the application of matcha is can be very wide, and sometimes even medicinal. So
so it kind of gives you that energy, but you can use it in different ways. It doesn't like impose. It's very like high, anxious. So you did this experiment with your journalist. She replaced her coffee routine with matcha. Is it for 14 days?
14 days, exactly.
And she noted, she was tracking, the effects.
Exactly.
And she published the results.
Which was
so successful.
That it got published in 4 other, actually, translations and articles of the same publication. It was in Glamour, and then they published it in Glamour US, Germany, UK, and also in GQ France, which was really nice. And she picked our matcha for the experiment. She was a coffee drinker, and throughout the time, like even though she was missing her coffee, and in the future she would probably have both, it was coincidentally just before she was about to get her period. And one of the biggest benefits that she, despite like feeling energized and calm, whatever, she actually didn't have any PMS. And even her husband noted that she was completely different and before getting her
That's
period.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And is that something that you knew before, or was this a discovery?
It's known. It's known. It's not like... Not everybody can confirm it, but I think it's just like it's not like you would drink matcha to ease your symptoms. But it's just, I think, the overall inflammatory and less stress on your body, because coffee sometimes can impose you a little bit of stress internally, that are acting together that kind of soothes your PMS, like before your period. And,
that's such good knowledge.
Yeah, it was one of her biggest takeaways, actually.
Wow. Yeah. And definitely at some point we can link the article as well.
For sure.
And you should have a look at the full results. So let's talk business. So talk me through the process. How did you go from dreaming up this brand in your mind to then making it a reality? I guess, what steps did you take? What's the process to develop a product, especially in Japan? I mean, Japan is a beautiful country with so much culture, but it's not so easy as a foreigner to, to interact and communicate and get your product, to export it. So what was how did it happen?
I think matcha itself stuck with me since 13 in Shanghai. And in general, I was just so fascinated by tea and like always drinking tea. And then when I moved back to London, I was thinking about what to do here. And like my entrepreneurial spirit, I was kind of brainstorming, and I wanted something similar to the café concept, but nothing where I have to necessarily physically be there, and kind of also I'm able to reach more people. So I was thinking more of an online shop or like a product rather than a coffee shop. And tea was kind of the natural answer because it was always part of me. Actually, I was thinking to franchise a friend's brand, which I really adored at the time. During our discussions, I really missed the element of designing the whole brand myself, which I did with 13.
Which I remember you doing at the time. I saw you in your...
Exactly. I just love this creative element of the branding side of the things. And then I was just literally like brainstorming, and I one step led to the next, and I was tasting samples from Japan. I did my research, and then I tasted a couple of samples. I was brainstorming the name. I was drawing down some logos. I was asking everybody of my family and friends like for their advice, probably also you, I think, at the time. And then I registered the company. It was like April 2020. And then I went through all the finalization of the packaging and so on throughout the next months, and then I launched in December 2020. And at the time, I think it was easier for me to do it in UK after having done it in China.
Of course.
Because everything was in English, and actually the communication with the farms at the time, even though actually nowadays I also have some farms which don't speak English. But actually it was funny because I recently when I visited Japan, I met a couple of my partners for the first time, and actually I assumed that they were speaking English because we never were in a call. We just were always emailing before. And then it turned out they were just using translator actually all the time, and our meetings had a translator as well. So it was quite funny. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of technology.
It was helpful.
Without technology, none of this was possible.
Yeah.
And so how did you manage at the time and now? I imagine there's been a huge evolution in the sourcing, the production, and the distribution of your product.
Yeah. So basically, I think as we grew now, the supply of matcha is kind of limited. And also actually now everybody is discussing in Japan that the rise of TikTok making matcha so trendy, it causes actually a lot of farms in Japan to sell out. So these days I'm literally trying a lot of different farms and matchas and kind of find alternatives as well. And sometimes I would have bigger accounts that order more volume, and then they have a very specific matcha, whereas the one that I'm selling online has been consistent from day one. So I'm always looking for what's out there, but there's just such a big difference of matcha out there, and the pricing can go, just to give you an idea, from $20 for a kilo wholesale pricing to $800 or even more. So there's a huge range.
Yeah.
And it's always important to taste, and there's so many elements. It's from the color to how it is harvested, which cultivars are used. So now I got a pretty good understanding, and my palette, I think, became much more refined to always find the best for my customers and what best suits their needs.
So what do you look for? What do you consider to be the best?
For me personally, I like a smooth flavor. I like when it's blends easily. There's also a difference, for example, stone milled and machine milled. Machine milled, usually they are blending much easier because the matcha is finer. And for example, if you are a coffee chain, you want to have a easy to blend matcha. You don't want to have the little pieces. So it's all really customers, some connoisseurs, for example, they love the ritual of sifting it and so on. So they want to take a proper time. But I think my main customer likes an easy to prepare matcha, which tastes good. And it's not grassy. It's more on a smooth floral, more on a green tea kind of flavor wise. That's what I'm personally looking for. Over the time, I've tasted so many different ones. Some are more grassy, and now that my palette, I guess, is more refined, I find it very interesting, but it wouldn't be necessarily my matcha of choice. And I always even though I try a lot of amazing matchas, I always miss mine back, and I always come back to mine.
That's amazing. That's good news for you there. You don't get tired of it.
No, I love it.
That's the thing that I was thinking. If you're working on a matcha brand, you're drinking it, you're selling it, you're talking about it, the fact that you still love it is such a positive thing for you as a founder of the brand. And so how do you keep this passion alive?
I don't know. I think it's a combination of little successes along the way, little milestones, not necessarily, I don't really put them for myself, but then it's oh my God, this happened. And this is actually amazing. And it makes me feel proud. So this, is a big element, which obviously keeps you going, but then also every small review, customer message and so on. It's just you created something that people are enjoying, and people sometimes these messages are so heartfelt, and they're you changed my life. I feel so much better since I started drinking matcha. And this is just something, you cannot get it anywhere else.
It's really a small thing that you can change in your routine, but that can have a huge impact on your well-being in a way, in your productivity.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you in the business of converting people from coffee to matcha?
Oh, for sure. That's my biggest win, actually. Because, if somebody likes matcha, they will probably like mine. But if somebody doesn't like matcha and then they try mine for the first time and they're oh my God, this is the best matcha. I like it. I always thought I hated matcha.
Yeah.
This is the best for me. Actually, I was just now in Dubai, and we worked there with a partner of ours, and my friend, she went there and she had our matcha there, and she was this is so amazing. And she's yeah, I loved it so much. I was oh, finally I like matcha. And then the next day she went to another coffee shop and she got a matcha. She's it was horrible. So I really realized how good the quality of yours is. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I think it is very smooth. Yours is really smooth, because even my partner, he doesn't necessarily like it when it's grassy and there. And I gave him yours, and I started with the vanilla one, of course. And yeah, he loved it. And I think it's a very easy matcha to offer to someone who's never had it, or someone who thinks they don't like it. But then even for people who do drink it, it's not overpoweringly sweet, because I think there's a trend now where people add strong vanilla,
I don't love
sweet
that
flavors, and then it's not really matcha anymore. It's just green, but it's not.
Exactly.
It's not anywhere near what it's supposed to be. And so how do you said that you don't specifically measure success, but how do you still track your performance, and so that you know that you're going in the right direction with your business?
I think Shopify, I guess, makes it a bit easier because they have this whole analytics tab, and I like to look at it, and you can compare the growth from like year on year and like in month by month, and like all these different categories. You can see which products are performing and not. And I mean, as long as the line goes up in a good angle, we are happy. Yes, and I think also in terms of like cash flow and so on, it's always a good indication of which direction you're going. And I think that's how I kind of measure it as well.
So can we talk cash flow and money? So it was self-funded, right?
Yes.
And I don't know if I remember correctly, but you did say something to me around how at some point, maybe it was for this business or the previous business, but you thought, this is almost like the budget, the money that I would spend on a master's or a university, but instead I'm going to invest it in a project.
Yeah, I think, I mean, these days the rates for a university are equally high. So my first business in Shanghai, because the cost of starting a business there was much lower comparatively for a cafe setting than here. And I kind of did the math because I just did a bachelor, and I was like telling my family as well, like in the end, it's the same cost we would have invested in me doing a master for a year. But then I literally got so much more out of it. And I think it's the best decision I ever took. And I think still that my business studies in the end were helpful. Of course, I think there were certain things that I took for granted, like knowledge that I had, which I wouldn't have had if I wouldn't have studied it, I guess. And also like, I think like planning it out and like seeing things through. So it definitely helped me, but I think it was a good choice to just jump into it and learn by doing, because that's, I think, the quickest way to learn in the end.
Yeah. To be specific, you're not advocating against studies because you did your bachelor.
I think it was helpful.
But in your case, you then, so after studying the theory, you went into applying and practicing the knowledge through a real life business case rather than into a master's. And so what advice do you have for any aspiring entrepreneurs about kind of bootstrapping and managing finances when launching a brand? Like what are the things they need to be ready for?
I think these days you compare yourself a lot to all the big brands out there, and they have millions of marketing budget available and brand building budget. So I think start small. I actually like, even for example, you don't have to hire a warehouse straight away. You can start fulfilling orders first from your house. Like
which you did.
I actually didn't. Like I started first with a warehouse because that's how I thought, because I was traveling a lot, and for me it was the easiest way to do it. But I would even advise against it, for example, just to test your product. And you can literally just like doing it at home, start an Instagram account. You don't even necessarily, you can link your PayPal there, or like you don't necessarily even have to have a website. Obviously, I recommend to have a website in the long term, but there's a free try as well. You can free try something.
There's so many ways around it.
Inventory cost, of course, is probably one of the biggest expenses that you would have to do when you start your business. So
especially if it's a consumer brand.
A consumer product, exactly. Then start small as well. It's nice to sell out. It's good to promote, like if you sold out, if you reached the first, like whatever, how many units and you sold them, you can announce it, and that even creates a hype. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend to stay sold out forever. Like if it takes really long to produce your product, then it's better to stay ahead. But if you have a quick turnaround, not so many lead times, I think just start with a small batch, which you can afford. Don't take crazy loans and just test if it's working. And even like if you think of doing like different variations of one product, maybe just start with one, make it the bestseller, like be famous for that one product, and then you can start building and adding up.
No, that's very good advice. And how did you build the direct connection with your community?
I think social media is probably was our main communication channel. However, like comparing it, for example, to the cafe in Shanghai, it was completely different. And that even like owning a website, like getting people on your website, you don't communicate the same way. Obviously, there's a chat box, but like not so many people are chatting. Like actually more than you would think, I guess. Yeah, and you would do like convert through the chat as well. But still, you don't really have a voice directly to the customer. And I think as I started and grew, I started to incorporate more events, pop-ups and so on to really like meet people in person. Because I think these like real life encounters, they have a multiplying effect compared to like just like being in a video on socials. But it's very different because I was not like an influencer myself or someone. Like I think if you already have like a big following and so on, you have obviously your personal brand, which you attach to maybe your future brand. And people already relate to you and they see that as a communication channel much more than me, for example, who didn't have a following and it was like just all the communication made through the brand. So there are different ways, but let's say you don't have a following and so on, but just be present, be behind the brand and also try to connect directly and show your face.
And how important has customer feedback been in shaping your business and the product offering?
I think the most. Actually, interestingly, like when I just launched, I launched with 2 types of matcha and 2 types of CBD, which was actually at the time very trending. It was like, COVID and everybody wanted to do Birkhahn. And I listened to someone's advice to do that. And actually it was not really my own heartfelt decision. And the market firstly is very regulated for CBD, and for example, you cannot, I don't know if it changed now, but you couldn't do Apple Pay, you couldn't do PayPal. There was limitations, and it actually kind of stopped the ease of like selling my matcha. So that was like an investment which I did, which I then decided to stop selling it, even though I still had stock because it was just slowing down my overall business. And in the end, we were Matcha Union, we were not CBD Union. So it wasn't really matching. I refocused. And I think these decisions you have to take when you notice something is not really moving.
And fairly quickly, right?
Quickly, yeah. Otherwise it just drags you.
Yeah,
I think.
So let's talk about your life as a founder. First of all, I think you really are the face of the brand now, I think.
I try to be. I still have people telling me I should be there more. I should be probably, but I'm trying my best.
I mean, I see it. I think your personal brand, even outside of the brand's accounts and the brand itself, there's a lot of similarities. I think, everything kind of matches perfectly. It's an extension of you.
Yeah, that's I think also.
So there is an alluring image of you being kind of this glamorous and healthy and aesthetics girl. But what is the reality? What does a typical day in your life
look like? It's very boring, to be honest. It's just like I wake up, I check my emails, I see if there's some issues to be dealt with straight away. And to be honest, I spend most of my time behind my laptop managing things. It depends. Like now we have different warehouses in different markets, and when I'm spending time there, I'm more like focused on going out and finding meeting new people and prospective clients and so on. And I think that part is a very important side of the business. But then the back end, like managing, takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because now since October, I have a full-time sales operation manager who helped me with that back end work. And that enabled me to actually be a bit more outgoing and meeting people in real life, showing and sampling my matcha, because in the end, people need to taste the product, not just an email. You can send as many outreach emails and samples. It's never going to be the same like when you go to a shop and meet the person who is responsible.
I think they need to connect with you as well, right? It's relationship building.
As well, yeah.
Yeah. And I know that from when we spoke last time that you were actually quite a shy person in your early days.
Yes.
But now going out, reaching out to people, putting yourself out there, how did you overcome this barrier?
I think, at heart, I was very shy in school. And then I think when I was a teenager, I got bullied a lot. And then it was like a little of like gangs and so on, like girls' gangs bullying each other and so on. I think that was kind of the time where probably I had a bit of shell around me, that also kind of protected me, but also kind of gave me the confidence to speak up for myself. And I think that was already like when I was like 15, 16, so that I kind of had to step out of my shyness to stand up for myself and protect myself from the bullies at the time.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, I think everybody goes through that at some point in life.
Yeah, I think some shape or form of bullying happens. Yeah. And this podcast is all about the opposites of bullying. This is about inspiring, motivating, helping each other, having role models and good examples.
Exactly.
So what aspects of your role and your job do you enjoy? You mentioned the day-to-day is boring, but surely if it was just boring, we wouldn't be doing it.
I think meeting people, meeting the community is number one probably, and also product development. Me personally, I enjoy it a lot. I think, engaging with my customers, whether it's like through messages and so on. And now that I have a team, working with the team is amazing as well. And like we have also an amazing content creator, and every time I see her work, it makes me so proud. Like she's just so talented. And I think that part of like, communication, like community communication, whether it's within the team or like with my clients and customers or partners, that's the most fun part, and that's kind of gives me joy. Engaging with our customers and like team building and like bouncing off ideas within the team. I think that's just something that's very exciting, and like you kind of map out the road where you're going, and I think that's probably one of the most fun parts of the business. That's the exciting part, and that's
and I think that's the reality of any founder's life. It can be very lonely, it can be very boring, especially in the beginning where you have to do everything. It can be very challenging. So you have this kind of list of things that you have to do to keep your business alive that are not necessarily the things you enjoy. And then you have these peaks of energy from the things that you do enjoy doing. So you have to find that balance. And regarding the notion that you mentioned last time, it takes 6 years approximately. I mean, there's different schools of thought, but I think 6 years is quite a fair assessment. So 6 years to build a direct-to-consumer brand. And what they mean usually by this is that you're achieving sustainable growth and brand recognition. So how have you experienced the difference over the years? Because it's been 4 years now.
The funny thing is, like, now looking back, like even like in year one, I was thinking there's so much going on all the time, and now I'm like, nothing was going on back then. Like, if we can compare to now, it's like nothing. And it's the funny thing is, like, when you're in the moment, you're just still like, maybe because there's new things that you're dealing with and so on, you're always like,
everything is new
on it. The
learning curve is massive. It's just a lot.
So I don't think like in the moment like anything changed from the feeling, but then I think the sense of like achievement and pride, it definitely changed, especially like now from year 3 to 4, because our growth has been much more substantial than before. But it's interesting.
And then you don't know what the journey holds for the future.
Exactly. I personally set myself then small targets, and like some small milestones are reached, and I'm like, oh, let's reach a little bit higher. I think we can do a little bit more, and that's kind of exciting once you reach those targets.
And what are some of the personal highlights, the success moments that you've really felt a sense of achievement and fulfillment from?
I think just like overall the journey, and like being able to support 3 warehouses with our matcha and all the thousands of customers that we have, and like seeing our products and our retail partners' websites, or even like in real life in the cafes, and that makes me most proud. And
to specify, you started as a direct-to-consumer, only selling to individuals, and then you grew to sell to accounts and cafes.
Kind of. I think it was always there, the element of B2B. But then surprisingly, actually, the B2B side grew much faster. And I think then it kind of jumped back to the B2C side as well. And then together we grew. But I think it was really important for us as a brand, like to focus on the cafes, coffee shops, and so on, because then like it's much easier like for a person to fall in love with the matcha when they're going to that coffee shop every day anyway, rather than just seeing it online. And for us, it was a really important road to reach more people through all our partners on the ground.
And what are some of the places where people listening can go and experience your matcha? In London or maybe other cities?
It really depends. So now we have Leto in London, which is great. We have Arian Bakery. We have Cat Coffee. We have in Germany Lab Coffee, which is a big chain. In Switzerland, we have Geneva, Mao's Kitchen. They have 2 locations as well. They do a lot of delicious matcha sweets as well. And in UAE, we just recently launched also with a few chains there, which you can find on our socials or archives.
Okay, so quite international.
Yeah.
And so what is the future for Matcha Union? How do you see the brand evolving?
I think continue sharing the love for matcha, signing up more people, changing the perception that matcha is not delicious, changing that perception, and growing with our partners together by sharing that product and our product.
Are there any projects that you're excited about?
We have a couple of well, actually from next year, we have a big project which is in the works. I cannot share before.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to find out what it is in due time.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was so nice to talk about your journey again, but in more depth, and to learn more about matcha.
Thank you.
What is your driving style?
Fast forward.
Fast forward. Wow, I like that. Is that from the German side?
I think so.
Yeah, the speed, the determination.
Definitely.
No looking back.
Yeah.
I like that.